All right, so with regards to the Goldman, oh fuck me. Shut up, Steve. You're so Steve, what's your handle on Twitter?
I
Which
don't have
Steve?
Twitter.
Okay,
The only
because I
reason my
got
Substack is because of you.
there's these three Steves that I'm like, oh, maybe this is the Steve. And I've
No.
been all like friendly with him, like, fuck, I think that's the wrong one. All right. Thank you, Steve. I appreciate that very much. All right. So then I will talk to you on Substack as soon as I figure it out. All right. So all right, if I go here, I'm only going to bring up the options thing so I can give you an idea like what Goldman's bias is. Forget all the nuances of it. Where the hell is that? Jesus fucking Christ, look at all the content. I got the kid actually. Sounds like I'm patting myself on the back. I guess what I'm saying is I've got the kid doing work now. All right. We go back to here. We go forward.
Is it the same guy, Chris, or you got a new guy?
Yeah. Well, he's hold on, let me pause this. I don't want to get him in trouble. God forbid if his the siloing or the compartmentalization, or the word in politics is atomization. The atomization of people out of communities into groups. It's one thing that to not develop the skill because you're isolated, but now you're isolated and being given nothing but good feedback, whether it's woke feedback, I feel bad for you, or it's you're thrown into a community, whether it be left or right, that just affirms everything you say. Elon is great. Yeah, he is. I agree. Elon sucks. The other, what is it, Blue Sky? Yeah, he does. He does suck. And there's no pushback, and in a more extreme fashion, there's no shame, and because there's no responsibility. Uh, yeah. Wait, I'm reading what Iggy just said. Owning medical practice, I can tell you that most of our diagnosis medicine are very poor, and treatment is even worse. Effective diagnostics not done by almost all the people I went to medical school with. Only just yeah, that's right, Iggy. Uh, uh, like I think medicine's a great example of that. A great example of that because once you figure out in an assembly line sort of fashion that 10% of the people do, what is it, 20% do 80% of the work, whatever the number is, right? Well, let's say the number was 20% to 80% of the work. Well, if you're a good capitalist, I sound like a socialist, but I guess what I'm talking about is assembly line work only goes so far because now you have boiled it down into like two people on your whole organization how to do something, right? You need to unretire people that know how to fly because the people that they were mentoring never got taught because you just didn't do that. And now at the medical level, you outsource your diagnostics to what the hell's the name of that company that I'm always seeing their boxes around? Q or something like that. Anyway, you outsource your diagnostics. There's no one who could do everything, and it's specialization. You know, my cousin is an RN, and she explained it to me. She explained that concept to me. She goes, eventually, she's like, eventually, because hospitals aren't profitable, she's being extremist, but probably not. Eventually, there will be 10 hospitals, but only one with doctors in it. And that hospital will use remote controls to do operations on people in the other 9 hospitals. And so it'll be like that. It'll be centralization and overpay to one person, and the rest of the people are just fucking baggage handlers. Anyway, um, uh, yeah, relying on AI for medical purposes. Yeah, all right, cool. So this is a conversation we can have all day. I'm sure we talk about. But anyway, that's what Steve did. Steve made me think about that. Thank you, Steve. It's all your fault again. All right. All right. So in brief, right? I will try and be in brief now, right? The options. I'm not going to get into what the options do and how they do it. But I will say this. Let me start by saying, if you want to know what these options imply, you have to know how the person selling them or creating them hedges their risk. So a bookie, that's what these guys are. They're bookies. Now, I happen to know a lot about these, not just because they're options, but because of how they come into the market. I used to see them when I was trading. They wouldn't come into the market as that option. They would come in as these regular options. And I'm like, well, that's kind of a weird combination of options. Someone would say, give me this call spread versus that call spread. I'm like, that's kind of, and I'll make this advanced structure. And I'm like, why are you doing that? That's like fucked up. There's an exotic going around upstairs and Goldman's trying to hedge it. I'm like, oh, really? And so I call my buddy at Goldman. I'm like, what the hell's going on? Oh, we did this option and we're trying to lay off some of the risk. So it's kind of like, you're betting the NCAA football game or a basketball game, and your two teams are playing, and you just keep getting lifted on one side of the bet. And so you say, fuck, I'll just bet the over somewhere else. And so they're doing this sort of shit. Anyway, exotics become prevalent when a market is in play, right? I said all that shit. But here's what I want to give you. I want to give for you in your mind, right? This is for Scott and everyone else, but this is for Scott. The P&L graph for Goldman Sachs. The P&L graph for Goldman Sachs in this binary option, where basically Goldman Sachs doesn't lose any money until it trades 3,500 in this example. So nothing, 3,500. Now, you can play the game that you don't want it to touch 3,500, but you're not playing that game. You're playing a statistical game. So what are they short? They're short the midpoint straddle between here and there. So do they want to hedge it or not? Well, they can hedge a little bit and gradually increase their hedge, and then they have to tail off again. So that trade itself is you're short a lottery ticket. That's all that is. You're short a lottery ticket. And if you hedge being short the lottery ticket by being long, if the market goes down, you're fucked, right? That's that trade. This trade is, oh man, this trade is you're short the current at the money call. And when the market goes up to where that other guy has the lottery ticket, all that money you lost from the call, you make back. So when you put the knockout option with the knock-in option, the one-touch option, you create a situation where at 3,500 in this instance, you have no problem. So everything between here and 3,500 is your problem. So it's kind of like, I bet with Randy that if the market goes to 3,500, I will pay him $10,000. And he pays me $1,000 for it, let's say. Whatever the odds are, I don't care. But that's it. So now I'm paid $1,000. And as the market touches there, I lose 9,000. I lose 10,000. I lose 9,000 total. So the other guy, I say to him, hey, psst, I swear to God, this is what they do. I mean, I would do it. They say, listen, how would you like to have all the upside on gold up to $35,000? But if it goes to $35,000 and touches it, you lose all your upside. And the customer goes, well, that kind of sounds weird. And then you come up with a reason for it. Gold's going to regress to the mean. Gold volatility is going to decrease. The market's going to go up slowly. And the guy goes, and it's cheap. You make the price cheap. So you say, yeah, I'll bet $1,000. And if the market goes there, you lose $1,000, or maybe it's $2,000. But in between there and there, you have a chance to win $10,000. So when you take these two options together and you hedge them, I'm not going to get into the hedge right now, but when you hedge them properly, when you overlay them and you create a little Venn diagram, this is my problem, right? And you hedge them properly, you create this kind of bell curve. Between where the market is now and 3,500, there's kind of a bell curve of profitability. I make a little bit of money, I make a lot of money in the peak, and I start to lose money, and then I make money again above it. Okay? And when you hedge it properly, there's different ways to hedge it. But when you hedge it properly, your risk becomes, you ready for this, Scott? A put. You want the market to go up. You're short a put. You want the market to go up. You just don't want it to go too far. And if it goes too far, you want it to keep going. But you want the market to go up. So when you do a trade like this, these two trades, you got one client doing, Randy's doing one thing, Steve's doing the other. I go, well, what the fuck do I do? Well, you go out and you buy a put. That's all you have to do. I take in $1,000 from Randy, $3,000 from Steve. I make $4,000. If the market trades 3,500, I keep my $4,000 and I take Randy's money and I give it to Steve, so to speak, right? And if the market goes below 3,500, I just keep my $4,000 and I lose some money to Steve, but Randy doesn't get paid, or vice versa. So you create this bell curve of hedging in between where the market is and where it could go. And you say, okay, if the market goes up, I don't lose money, right? And then your boss says to you, I would be your boss in a sense. I go, what if it goes down? Because, by the way, I gave ChatGPT this problem, and it said, do this. It was right about half of it. I said, and I typed into it, I saved it. What if the market goes down? They're like, well, and basically it was like, how do you mean? You know, like that's the point. It just, so if the market goes down, all this money that I've invested in hedging my Randy Steve risk becomes just money I've lost. More money than I make from off of Randy and Steve. And so in order to do that, you need to have a put. What's a put for these guys? Is Scott here today? Shit.
Hello.
All right, good. Scott, I promise you, we're not going to get to this right now, but I want to leave this with you.
Okay.
The ideal person, no one else, like most people who aren't options people are not going to get this, but the ideal person to manage the risk of this Steve Randy combo trade I just did is a guy who was long $150 lower. Why? Because he's long an in the money call. And an in the money call is like a put. So to hedge these options individually, you have to be long futures, long futures, long futures. And if you want to hedge them advanced, you have to be long calls, long calls, long calls. But to hedge them really advanced, you want to be long in the money calls, which are basically puts, because your loss is limited to that level, and then you get short the market. Anyway, it's really fascinating because I've seen this before in gold, but usually it used to be in oil. So the fact that they're doing it in gold just confirms it. Gold is the new oil. They don't give a shit about oil anymore. Anyway, that was a lame explanation, but you know it was impromptu or extemporaneous. Let's move on to
Vince, it would be good if you could go into it in more detail on another time. But
I will.
Implicitly, you're saying Goldman's is long and they're long from a lot lower.
Yeah, I am. And even if I'm wrong on how much lower they're long, let's pretend they had no position at all. Because what I did was I put together the trade on how I would do it. I'm like, this is where I would hedge it. This is how, and basically I end up buying an at the money call, right? Or I basically end up buying an at the money put and hedging it with small long futures. Or I buy an at the money call. The point is I get long and I get longer and then I get less long as we go up. Okay. So it's kind of like I'm buying a put and I keep raising the put level. I get long and I buy a put. I get long and I buy a put, or a rolling call, if you will. But that's how I you know, it's not rocket. It is, I mean, it is rocket science, right? But it's not rocket science for me once you figure out a routine to do it. You know, it's just as hard as doing fucking hanging drywall once you figure it out. I have no fucking idea how to do that, but you showed me a couple times and I'll be able to do it. Anyway, so when I looked at this, I went, oh, my position, I'm sure to put. I'm sure to put. And I went, well, who would do this? And I went, all right, someone who's already long and has profits. Why? For three reasons. One, your clients are institutional and very smart. They're going to do what I just did. And they're going to say, this option that you're trying to sell me should be worth X. But Goldman is going to sell it to them cheaper